and we will get started. And Rich will join us, hopefully.
Ready to go.
All right, great. Thank you, Katrina. It's nice to see you here, Katrina.
Nice seeing you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the March 4th Government Operations Committee meeting to order. We are waiting on one of our members, but I trust he will show up. Any changes to the agenda?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Amanda, I did send out a revision of the draft local law
Okay, yes.
a little while ago.
Okay, I saw
Makes
that.
no substantive change, it just puts it in the right form.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Katrina, have you heard from anyone?
I have not received anything.
Okay. All right, there's Rich. Let's go ahead and do the minutes of February 4th. Can somebody move that? Dan moves it, Rich seconds. Thank you. Any questions or comments about the minutes? I don't even know where they are. Anybody? Nope. All right, let's go ahead and vote. Let's start with Rich.
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
And I'm yes, so that passes. Thank you. And why don't we go ahead and just do the advisory board appointment? There was one person for the Public Information Advisory Board. Lucas Smith, term expires December 31st, 2021. And can somebody move that? Dan moves. Rich seconds. Any questions or comments about that? All right, let's go ahead and vote. Mike Lane?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, thank you. And welcome Maureen Reynolds, our county clerk. Haven't seen you in a while. It's good to have you here. And I asked Maureen to stop by to just give us an update on the clerk's office, but also the DMV and how things are going during COVID and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if folks have questions, or Maureen, you want to just jump in and give us a little update? You're still muted.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so I have Julie Seeley on with me. She's my DMV supervisor, and Alana Congdon, she's my deputy here at the clerk's office. So I guess I have like this informal annual report. It's not quite done yet. One of the things I like to put in it is pictures of my staff, and I haven't had all my staff in one spot lately to take a picture. So I didn't want to put it out till that was done, but I'll show you what I have here. Is it okay if I go ahead and share my screen?
Yes, please.
And let's see. Okay. Can everybody see that?
I can. Yep. Looks good.
All right. So basically, staffing, we had 3 retirements last year, one in the clerk's office, one was our mails person, the county mail, and one at DMV. So we're a little shorthanded right now at DMV. We have 2 openings that we haven't filled yet because training at DMV is a side-by-side process and it's can't maintain social distancing. So we've had to put that on hold during this pandemic. Let's see. So, I mean, at first when COVID hit, we had no idea what was going to happen. And I kept telling Kevin, I go, something's going on. The real estate market's still crazy. You know, during the recordings never stopped. We didn't close. We kept taking stuff. And the courts did shut down, so we did lose that revenue during the shutdown. But I just kept saying there's something going on. Houses are selling. And they said, well, maybe it's just stuff in the pipeline. I said, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff selling. Houses seem to be selling at higher prices and cash. And seem to be people from other areas coming in and buying homes. So these were our revenues from last year that we collected for not just the county. We also collect for the villages, towns, and the city through the mortgage tax. We collect mortgage tax for TCAT. And then the money we collected for the state. Yeah, I'll have a synopsis of that at the end too, so we can look at it again. So, you know, during March and April, it was more of a learning curve on realtors on how to show houses, how to get, you know, people into the market. So we did have a drop a little bit, but it's not a huge one, nothing where I was afraid of. So mortgage tax still seemed to be almost the same as, you know, very close to last year. So people were still borrowing money. Hopefully it was that they're buying homes or refinancing and not didn't have a job and didn't have money. But so the money was still coming in the clerk's office. At DMV, that's another story. When we first shut down, we got like zero guidance from New York State on what we could and couldn't do. And we were kind of left to fend for ourselves. And they said, you can't help anybody in the office. You can't help people out. If you open the doors to one person, you open to everybody. So it took us, you know, we had a couple of weeks, we had all the dealer work and stuff. We were still doing for McGuire's. We were allowed to do that. Then we caught on that some of the counties were having people mail in. So then we started a mailing service, and then we started a drop box. And as we realized what we could and couldn't do, mind you, with no guidance from Albany at all, besides being told that they weren't to talk to us, because I don't know, but we really bailed out state DMV. Most of our work during that time was Metro New York, and Long Island was mailed up to us because people down there were just trying to get anything registered and on the road, and the state-run DMV offices were closed until mid-June. So we did a lot of stuff for downstate. Unfortunately, we only could have half staff, and so we could have done more if we had more staff. We were trying to do what we were told to do and did what we could. One of the things on here on the clerk's revenues is a new graph at the bottom, and it's an internet sharing revenue. We've had that for probably 10 years, and we would get maybe a couple $1,000s at the end of each year. It's based on this weird formula from once we reach a threshold of where we were when they implemented this 10 years ago or whatever. Anything above that, we get a tiny little percent of the overage. So it's money where people, when they go online and do it, and Albany does the work, we are getting a little tiny bit back. Not much. But in 2019, I just put up the last 2 years, we didn't meet that threshold until June. And then with COVID, or till July, and then with COVID, you could see where the threshold just skyrocketed. So people went online and did a lot of their DMV business, which is easy for them, not great for us. One of the things we have to do for the Clerks Association is we're always in negotiations with the state to try to either increase our retention, which is what comes across our counter. We get 12.7%, either increasing that percentage or trying to get more of the internet sharing revenue. So one of the bad things about COVID was we only had one naturalization ceremony. That's probably like the best part of my job, are those ceremonies. So we didn't have those. However, people were still naturalized by immigration in the offices. So it's not like they didn't get naturalized and they couldn't vote, because we were concerned that people weren't getting naturalized. They were. So that, at least that happened. It just didn't happen here. You know, and usually we do thousands of passports, and of course that dropped right off because the passport agency was closed for the majority of last year. Here again, I talk about the highlights at DMV, and COVID was really tough there because we had zero guidance from New York State, and we just had to figure out what we could and could not do. We didn't want the state police showing up and shutting us down. They did that in Portland with their drive-in. So we did, we're trying to follow the rules, figure out what the rules were, and still keep money coming in and helping people get their cars registered, because there was a fantastic need for it. People just were crazy. They wanted their stuff registered. So we had to set up an appointment system, and that was brand new to us too. So we did that, and that's a great system if you have an appointment. If you don't, you're not very happy when you want to register your car. So we've tried to work with that. Generally, we book our appointments out through the day, and then as we have cancellations or no-shows, or say we're a little caught up, we'll bring people in the door if we can. Say you just bought a car and you got to get on the road because I got to get to work. We try to bring everybody in we can, even without an appointment, if it's possible, to safely get them in line and get them processed that day. So we do try to do that. There's our lovely little drop box that we have. It just makeshift thing we put out there, and it saved us during the shutdown. I got an award last year. I'm just showing this because my parents are in it and they're very proud of it. So that's all that matters, is that they see this.
Definitely.
So they were very happy I got this award. And it was based on the shared services we've done with all the towns in Tompkins County.
You were happy you got the award too, Maury.
Well, my parents are very happy, and that's all that matters in life, is that they're happy. Thank you, though. And then our social media and our online presence really picked up. So with the attorneys, we did more e-recording of documents. The courts have pretty much mandated that we do e-filing with all the cases. So we saw those dramatically go up. We had social media, and I'll tell you that at times during the shutdown, I would have, usually 100 people read my posts. I was having 12,000 people read my posts. And, I answer all the social media questions if I can, or I forward it on to Julie if it's too complicated. She has to look it up. But I mean, in just 1 week, there was thousands of Facebook. I was just on Facebook all day long trying to answer questions and help people. And there again, I only had 5 people in the office working and, trying to do this. So we could have done better. But if we'd had more staff on. So hindsight is wonderful now, but I thought we were going to shut down for a couple of days. With the shared services, it's we continued on with scanning for our partners, and we try to get people to do more with Laserfish. We did complete our work with Portland County. We're hosting for them and a lot of their towns now, and some of their towns have really taken off and are using it a lot. Let's see. We didn't get to go to many conferences last year, but we just did our Laserfish conference virtually this year. It was totally different. But again, it's definitely a great software that we use to do our shared services. So with COVID last year, the Real ID license was supposed to be implemented by October 2020. That has been pushed back to October 2021. So most of our appointments every day are people getting either the Real ID or the enhanced driver's license, so they can board domestic flights come October 2021. We haven't heard of that being pushed back yet, but that's what it was, pushed back a year already. And the bunker is still there.
Oh, good.
So here are the money that we made for, for the county, how much we collected for the county this year, how much we made for the towns and villages, how much we made for New York State. I have that, and then I'm going to briefly click over here to 2019. The ones I saw the difference in mainly were was the transfer tax. Hold on, let me just find it. And the DMV fees. But what's really funny is our sales tax was up almost $1 million in 2020. So that's money we send directly to the state. We don't get a portion of that. However, it shows that people were buying cars and just couldn't get them registered downstate. So we did a lot of the downstate sales tax. Mind you, in April, we registered a $200,000 Lamborghini. And for someone in Staten Island, I'm thinking, how could you go fast in Staten Island? I don't know, but it was just amazing. The car sales just skyrocketed. So Let me just get out of this. And so I guess, is there any questions? I have Julie on here too to talk about stuff, or at DMV, how things are going. McGuire's is still selling cars, a lot of cars. Nod your head, Julie. Yes, yeah, crazy days at McGuire's. We try to we see what the financial health of the county and what comes through the car dealerships, and the real estate market. And I'm still an optimist. So it's down, but it's good. It's really good. So.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for that rundown. It would be great if you could maybe send us those slides so we could look at the.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I just didn't have it finished yet. So that's my.
That's fine. That's fine. Mike Lane, you have a question?
Maureen, thank you for that. Your department has responded wonderfully to all of this, and I know it hasn't been easy. I haven't heard a single complaint, other than the office is closed, we have to get appointments. I know people don't like that naturally, but no complaint with the way they're treated or the way that their stuff is handled. So thank you, and please pass that on to the folks that work with you down there.
I'll let them know. Thank you.
If I could ask, Maureen, at the F&I meeting, you came, thank you, and I know Dan was there, and I heard you mention some things about why it would be helpful if we had a CDL training site in Tompkins County. Could you mention that for the folks here at GO?
Sure. So a few years ago, the feds changed the regulations on CDL testing. It's a lot more complicated, and you have to have a bigger spot. And so we were no longer able to hold CDL testing in Tompkins County. So now people that want to get a CDL, like bus drivers for TCAT or school buses or whatever, have to get in a big vehicle, take a licensed driver with them, and then drive to a regional testing site, like Binghamton or Oneonta or different places, Syracuse. And then they wait and they take their test up there. I had TCAT reach out to me in the early days wanting to see about getting a site here. We canvassed Jay. I had him look aerial all over the county, big enough spots. We had some potential ones that people weren't interested in leasing the area to us. But I think it would just be good because it wouldn't just be our residents. It would be all the neighboring counties would drive in for the day, do their testing, have lunch, spend some time here, and then go home with their CDLs in hand. It just seems like something that we should be able to offer. And Mike Hall really listened to me one day and had an idea of where we could put a testing site. And he has talked to BOCES about doing where they can train drivers on the same site and possibly use that site for other things. So it's up on Warren Road, not where he originally thought, but I think near the DOT facility.
Thanks, Maureen. One thing I always find amazing is that if someone wants to take the test, they have to bring a commercial vehicle with them. For example,
Right.
Syracuse or Binghamton. That's a bus or a semi truck or whatever they're having to learn on. So
And a licensed driver with them. So it takes two people.
Okay, yeah, thank you. It seems like it would behoove us in our county to be able to do that here. Let's see, Ann Corman.
Thanks, Amanda, and thanks, Maureen. I had two questions. One is, you said we don't get the sales tax. I guess if they're buying the car somewhere else, we don't get the sales tax, right?
Correct.
So they're buying it somewhere else, but they're just registering it through.
Right. We get
Tompkins
12.7% of the registration. So we're getting something for it.
But not the sales tax. Okay. And
Correct.
then over the last question, you mentioned the home sales, and I've heard, a little bit about this before. Just wondering if there's an easy way to compare the home sales for people that are buying from out of town versus not buying from out of town, comparing that to the last few years, because I know that's been talked about in our housing meeting and in other meetings of what trends are going on in the community. Are people going to be moving up here? Are people investing here? Or I'm just wondering how hard that would be to do.
I don't know. And, it's hard to say because in this county, a lot of people move in for Cornell and for Ithaca College, teaching staff, faculty, students. So in June, when this was happening, I didn't think so much about it, but while it continued through the fall is when I started to think something was happening. So I don't know the difference between who was, going to move here anyways, to take a position at Cornell or whatever, or why the home sales, just kept coming through from out of town people. So I don't know if I can distinguish that, but I can definitely take a look at it.
Okay, we could also ask through the board of the realty boards too. I just know as a home inspector, I definitely saw it over the last 15 to 20 years, a big, a slow gradual change of people investing more in this area.
Correct. Yep.
But I don't know if there's something else going on. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I was just wondering, Maureen and Julie, you said you had to reduce staff by 50%. Is that still the case? Like, how many folks are in your offices at the moment?
No, currently we have 8 staff at DMV. So we should have 10, but we have everybody back working. We can't do like pod groups because we would have to be extended hours or more days, and we really need everybody there every day. So we maintain the 6-foot distancing, and we try to be as careful as possible.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. It seems like it's been hard for everybody, but definitely hard to to get folks in there. So, any other questions? Well, I really appreciate you all coming in and giving us a rundown of how things are. It's good to get some more details. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Great, thanks. We will move on to our Director of Assessment, Jay Franklin, who gave us a nice long report. And I'll turn it over to you, Jay.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I normally have Dom in here driving the camera for me, so we'll get this set up. But thanks for having me here today. As my normal presentation here in March, you get the results of our 2021 AEM program, our annual equity maintenance. So this will describe the work that we're doing in order to keep our assessment roll at 100% level of assessment. As you may be aware, we can really choose any level of assessment we want to value at. 100% seems a lot easier. That way your assessment is what your market value is. For comparison's sake, Nassau County values at 1/4% of market value for the Class A residential properties. They also have 3 other classes of properties that are valued at different percentages of assessment with different tax rates. So try to explain that system to the general public. I don't know how it happens. I don't know what a $1,236 assessment means. And I was a math major at Binghamton. I say this every time. I can't figure out 36% of something until I figure out 100% first. I don't want to do any more work. I don't want the public to have to do any more work. It's just simpler that way. This is a little different AEM program because I wasn't involved too much in this. So I have to give kudos to my staff in the assessment office. Ever since March 13th, when I got the call from Lisa Holmes to, hey, you want to help review a policy we're doing about COVID? I've been pretty much predominantly up here at the EOC assisting Frank and Amy and Dom and everyone else. And it's been fun. It's been challenging, but I couldn't have been able to do it without the team I have at the assessment office. The work that Irene Keogh, Tammy Van Orman, Vang Zyrath have done, they've really stepped up and allowed me to focus on this work and still keep a toe in there, but it's been great. We did have 3 retirements this year that I'd like to mention. So we lost Barb Just, Kathy King, and Al Fiorelli to retirement. The knowledge and experience they have going out the door, it's never going to be replaced. Especially point out Al. There's been 5 directors of my office, and Al's been hired by 4 of them. So he's that penny that keeps coming back, but he's been everything from a tax map technician to an appraiser. He was also a real property tax director over in Sigler County as well. If you want to know history of railroads in Tompkins County, Al is your man. It's just amazing the knowledge that he has. And I still have his number. I still text him. I don't know what we're going to do without him, but we'll manage and we'll get through it. So it's definitely a loss to see those 3 people leave. But, with every end, there's a chance for a new beginning. So we were able to hire Heather Richway. Heather's been doing a lot of the support at the EOC as well with contact tracing. So I hear she's a good employee, but I've only been working with her for about a month. So we always joke about that. We hired Nick Murphy. You all know Nick from admin. We brought on Nick to help with the commercial evaluation that Al has done. And Nick's been great, jumped right in with little training, and he's doing a great job. And then we also hired Tyler Lawrence from the trust company's escrow. And I love a person when you can tell him one thing and he'll do it, and then he'll take that next step without even having to tell him it. So we've gotten really good 3 new employees to replace really good employees that we left. So we're very fortunate in that case. For the 2020 assessment role, we received the Excellence in Assessing Award. So that's our 22nd year in a row we received that. We're the only assessing unit in New York State that received it all 22 years, and the only one that received it back when we did a fractional assessment back in 2006 and 2007. This will be our 52nd assessment role filed at the county. We started back in 1970. And we've probably saved taxpayers of the county about $8 million over our lifetime as a consolidated assessment office. Right now, we're saving around, $400,000, $500,000 compared to what a similarly structured town assessing function would do. This year was a minor year in terms of assessment changes. The real estate market is still slowly creeping up, but not nearly as active as it was in 2 years ago or 1 year ago. It's still increasing. There's not a lot of product on the market, and there is high demand. So, we've kind of always just slowly crept up. We haven't seen those 10, 15, 20% increase per year that other places across the country have. We're a little more steady. This year, one of our major projects was we did an agricultural data review. And one of the reasons why doing that is when half of the staff was home during our first, in March, April, May, we needed something for the staff to do while home. And this was something that they could do as our state provided database isn't really accessible from outside of the county's network. So we were able to create plot plans, verify inventory measurements on all of the ag buildings so that for the 2022 roll, we can go ahead and revalue those properties. Residential wise, we revalued the town of Lansing outside of the village, Ellis Hollow, and both Dryden and Caroline. It kind of creeps into Caroline now. They have the Cuga Heights, the village of Cuga Heights, and a couple small pocket neighborhoods that have kind of popped up, more like Deer Run, Eastwood Commons, Penny Lane. Commercial wise, we're going to take a look at hotels. I sent out income and expense information to hotels to see how COVID has affected them. We've met with Nick from planning to go over data that he may have and could share with us. He can't share everything, obviously, but we're trying to take a look to see how COVID affected that market, as there was a definite drop in their occupancy rates, and trying to predict how quickly they will rebound is definitely interesting. We looked at auto body shops, kennels, funeral homes, and medical office space. I should jump back to hotels. We haven't made those changes yet. I gave the hotels until March 1 to give me their INEs, so we'll see what comes trickling in past March 1, and then we'll make a decision for the May 1 tentative roll. So this year, tomorrow on Friday, we'll be sending out those assessment change notices. So we have 4,811 changes. Typically, we average around 8,300 per year. So this is about half of the changes that we would make in previous years. So out of those 4,800, a little over 11–12%, 571 were assessment decreases, and the remaining 4,240 were assessment increases, with the average increase about $20,000. Overall, the assessment for the county is up about $180 million, up to about $14.5 billion. And the tough part is trying to estimate what the taxable value would be. Right now, it's about a 2.8% increase. But as New York State changed how the senior exemptions are renewed this year, we can just roll forward the prior year's exemptions. I don't know where we are in that status of rolling those forward. So I don't know how much of that tax base is really going to be realized. Typically, I have a good kind of guess as to how many exemptions we still have, but this year with those changes, I just don't know yet. So stay tuned till May 1. One odd thing, looking at the number of sales that occurred for residential properties this year, we had 856, which is very interesting because in 2017, we had 857. And in 2018, we had 858. So it was very interesting. 3 out of the 4 years were within 2 sales of each other. Granted, in 2019, we had 949. But included in my chart, you should see where that bump is happening. I'm not sure which page it's on. Let me get to there. But this year, the average sale price went up about $20,000, and the median sale price went up around $23,000. So I should also say, when I'm talking about our 2021 assessment roll, I'm looking at the market as of where it was as of July 1 of 2020. And I think June 20th or so was when New York pause started to be lifted, at least the phase 2 for residential closing. So our 2021 AEM is only half of that year. So as we look forward to 2022, we'll see where this $20,000 increase is coming from. And that'll probably be reflected if it continues through the first half on the 2022 assessment roll. There was a question with Maureen about out-of-town buyers. That's one thing we're asking when we qualify sales, to try to figure out why people are buying where they're buying. Where else did they look? Why did they decide on this property? And the vast majority of people who are coming in from outside, and it's tough to gather that data because on the deed, they're going to put the new address for the owner and not necessarily where they're coming from. The proper way is to put in, if I'm buying 83 Auburn Road, you put in that address. So it's kind of difficult to gather where people are coming from. You kind of get it kind of anecdotally. Can't say that word. I don't know why I try. But when we talk to them, the vast majority of people who are moving into this area either have some connection to Cornell, they graduated from Cornell and they want to retire here, or they lived in Ithaca when they were growing up and their parents are still here and they wanted to move back home. So most of the people that we see here have a intimate connection to the community. And, I don't want to say that they're not like strangers moving in, but there's some connection that they have. There's probably more people who don't have that connection that are coming in, but definitely the majority have some connection to us already here. But I think that's it for my presentation. If you have any questions, more than willing to answer.
Yeah, all right, questions, Mike Lane.
Thank you, Jay. That's very interesting. I always try to put the address of where the person is coming from on the deed, so I try to do it that way, so you could have that information. When I've been in my legal practice, I've been seeing no let up on residential purchases, and probably more cash purchases for $250,000 houses than I've ever seen in a year before. Just some of them are connected here, and some aren't. But I think your diagnosis is probably correct. It's mostly connection. But here's my question. I see that the governor wants to tinker with the star exemption again. And how's that going to affect people that have changes, for example, that maybe have regular exemption, star exemption because of their age, say 60, now they turn 65. Can they get the enhanced, the assessment reduction if they have a life use with the enhanced, and that person dies and it goes to the remainder person who's also, let's say, over 65? Do they get to keep the assessment reduction? I think it's getting to be ridiculous. I know they're trying very, very hard to kick as many people off of the assessment reduction as they can, but it's what people prefer.
Yeah, and it is convoluted, confusing, and impossible to explain. And I'm trying to figure out how in depth I want to go here. So we'll start off. As of right now, under current legislation, if you have a star exemption, you're able to continue that on. If you have your basic star and you move on to 65 years of age, you can graduate to that enhanced star. Included in the governor's budget proposal is no new enhanced star exemptions would be granted. So if you were receiving the basic star in your school tax bill, saving $600, you become 65 years of age, you would have to then move to the star check credit in order to receive that $1,100 check from New York State. So you would lose the $600 savings on your tax bill, and then you would hopefully get a check from New York State when taxes are due for that. My state organization, the Real Property Tax Directors, are opposing that change. It's just there's no good reason why someone would have to pay a higher tax bill in the hopes of New York State sending a check to them. And I've heard it all too often of someone would change to that program in hopes of getting 2% more money, and they didn't receive the check by the time their taxes were due, and they had to front New York State that money. So there's just really no reason to do it. I just recently learned that I think New York State's going to force this issue even more. Included in the governor's proposal is that the school district will lose either their COVID-19 aid or they will lose the star reimbursement, whichever is less. So how the star works right now is if my tax bill is $1,000, I'll get a bill for say $700 and my star tax savings is $300. I pay $700 to the school district, New York State pays $300 to the school district. So if the schools lose that star reimbursement, they are now going to be short $300,000. So in terms of Lansing School District, it's like $1.5 million they may be short. So it's easy to not budget for the COVID aid, which they didn't receive this year, but to not budget for the star reimbursement, I'm not entirely sure how that happened or how that will happen. And then this was a very recent development. I got a call from someone in a state office to alert me of this kind of on the off record. So we're looking into this, but I would anticipate for 2022, the state will be trying to force everyone off of the star exemption onto that check credit. Because as I've said before, the check credit is unreceived revenue by New York State. It's not spending, but the star reimbursement is spending. In the end, it's the same thing, but if you want to stay within a 2% spending cap, call it not spending and unreceived revenue, and you can do that. So hopefully I didn't go out too far on that, Mike, but.
No, thank you, Jay. It's very depressing.
We are trying to fight it, and I know a lot of senators and assembly people are against it. They've heard it long and clear from the Assessors Association. Stop messing with star. It's just too difficult to explain.
Dan, did you have a question?
Did, thank you. Reading through the report and through the town by town descriptions and analyses, and I wasn't actually sure. So I guess I'm mostly asking about Caroline and Danby. I couldn't tell, are these towns getting reassessed this year or not?
No, we in Caroline, we did it for the 2019 assessment roll.
Okay.
And also for Danby in 2019. So we're monitoring them to kind of see if they're more of a spillover, kind of the lower priced area from the core donut surrounding Ithaca. But we put this in, besides presenting this report to you, it's also something that I have to present to the Office of Real Property Tax Services. And they like to know why we did what we did, but they also like to know why we didn't do what we didn't do. So I put in this kind of running dialogue of the last time we revalued that municipality or neighborhoods, and kind of any little informational tidbits that we can put in.
So what does it mean when you say, for instance, it says similar to Caroline, some Danby properties will see a larger increase than others to keep them in line? When would they see that increase? Under what circumstances?
Well, that's a bad editing and copying over from the 2019
Okay, I like that
annual
better.
report on there. So yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay, thank you. Now I understand.
Yeah.
And anything else, Dan?
No, thank you.
Okay. I was just going to ask Jay, you mentioned in the report, about the challenges of your staff going into the field and, interacting with people and people, homeowners wanting their privacy and all of that. And you mentioned you started working with the sheriff, and maybe you could just talk a little bit more about that. What have you had incidents with your staff of, being accosted by people, or?
Yeah, we do. It's not that frequent, and it's more people, we'll drive on the public right of way on the road. We'll go take a look, and maybe we're following up on a building permit on a new garage. We'll drive by, we'll see the framings up, and we'll say, all right, we'll just snap a picture and then we'll move on. We don't need to stop, it's not done. It's not a waste of our time being there, but we'll just kind of snap a picture and then we'll move on. A lot of the times a property owner may see us, take a picture, and then they'll come and take a look at us. All of our field appraisers are in official county cars with the official license plate. So hopefully people can see that. But it's definitely a different atmosphere. When I started in this business, I went door to door. No one was there. You got the tape measure out and you measured the whole building and you were able to walk around. Nowadays, that's just not safe. So we will go to a door, we'll knock on it. If no one's home, we'll send them a postcard and say, hey, we're looking at your new deck. Can we come out and take a look at it? So we're trying to be a little proactive. We do work with Kim Moore at the IT department to try to learn where we don't want to go. We do let the sheriffs and the 911 know where we're going to be when we're out in the field doing a major project. So if we're out in the village of Groton, we'll give the village police office a call and say, hey, we're going to be out here for 3 weeks. If someone gets a call about a white RAV4, that's us. So it's just a definite change of people wanting that privacy within their house. And we're more than happy to respect that privacy. We just have found other ways to get that data that we need. Either through postcards, we found people love emailing us at 1 a.m. in the morning in order to get that answer back. It's a lot better than phone calls. So it's a challenge, but that's why when we do these informal assessment review meetings starting March 15th, that's the time for the public to come in and change our assumptions. When we go and we're not out at a property, we're not looking at it, we are making assumptions, and you know what happens then. So if we're wrong, we need the public to come in and tell us. We're not going to defend something that's wrong. We will defending if it's right, but give us more information. And I think most of my appraisers in the office try to find ways to help that property owner to have their assessment be reduced. Hey, do you know something about this sale right next door? Is it a nicer property than yours? Help me help you kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great. That makes sense. And we want people to be safe out there. So it is a different time. Any other questions for Jay? All right. Well, I very much appreciate you taking the time to be here, and thank you for all your work at the EOC. And I know that's a big thing. So thank you.
I just know if Lisa calls me after hours anymore, I'm not going to pick up the phone. But
yeah, definitely.
It's been great. And I'll tell you what, one of the best things that I've liked about it is meeting people from other departments.
Yeah.
Being in my building, we know Board of Elections and we know ITS, but we don't get out and see any other people. So, really meeting Gladys, getting to know Katie a little better, sitting all too long with Frank, Dom, and Amy. It's been great in that aspect.
That's great. All right. Well, thanks for being here, and we're gonna move on to our county attorney, Jonathan Wood, and we have a couple of resolutions here. So let me find them. The first one is authorizing a public hearing on local law number B of 2021, a local law amending Chapter 80 of the County Code and repealing Article 30.4 of the County Charter to allow for the merging of the Stop DWI and Traffic Safety Committees. And can I have somebody move that? Rich moves that. Dan seconds that. And what do you want to tell us about this, Jonathan?
Not a whole lot. I mean, it's a bit self-explanatory. It's been going on a long time, actually, that these committees decided to be more efficient to join as one committee. One committee is established in our charter, the other is established in the code. And to join them together, we would have to eliminate the Stop DWI section of the charter and mix it in with the traffic safety board established in the code. And that's what this is attempting to do. I mean, the honest truth is I went to the committees and it was have to have been like a couple years ago. Everybody agreed to do this. And then just like about a month or so ago or a few weeks, Jason came in with a draft of the law, which I changed pretty considerably. And I hadn't realized that that it hadn't been done or that they were continuing to work on it. But it essentially just for efficiency just puts two committees into one. There is obviously some overlap between what those committees do and the general feeling that it was inefficient to have two separate committees.
All right. So this, excuse me, this resolution is for the public hearing. Are there any questions about it from anyone? Dan?
Yes, I don't know if it relates to this or the next resolution, but it kind of doesn't matter. I'm wondering, in the charter itself, do we need to define or spell out what DWI is? If that's a forever document or not really?
Well, it's eliminated completely from the charter. So in the charter, there will be no reference to it at all.
Code then?
Yeah. So we could define it. I mean, it is established by state law. I mean, that there shall be a stop DWI committee. So it is defined in state law, but if we want, we can have a reference to that or a definition from that, if that would be helpful.
Only if you think it matters. I just realized that, I saw DWI in there, but there's never identifies what that is. We all know what it is, but.
Yeah, well, maybe that would, I could put in the reference, but it is actually from state law, the Stop DWI Committee.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right, let's go ahead and vote on the public hearing. Dan?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Mike Sigler? Are you there, Mike Sigler?
Yes. Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
And I'm yes. Thank you. All right, so that passes. So let's do the second one, which is the adoption of local law number, I guess, B of 2021, a local law amending Chapter 80 of the County Code and repealing Article 30.4 of the County Charter to allow for the merging of the Stop DWI and Traffic Safety Committees. Can somebody move that? Rich moves. Mike Lane seconds. And any other questions about this? Rich?
I would just, this is a good thing. This just makes good common sense. Having attended both committee meetings, I think the functions will combine very well, and it'll just be a lot easier to administer. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Anything else from anybody? All right, let's go ahead and vote. Mike Lane?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And I'm yes, so that passes as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jonathan.
Sure.
All right. Let's move on to talk about, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan and Rich, is this our last section of the rules of the legislature?
I think Rules Fest has been coming to an end.
I think Rules Fest is coming to an end. It's been fun. Okay, so this is rules, what are we on? 13 through 18. And, a lot of it is wording changes, clarifying some things. I don't really think there was much that was like significant or major policy changes. I'm not sure if folks have questions. I guess I'm not sure we need to walk through each line as we've done in the past because a lot of it is really self-explanatory. As I said, we did move some things around, and this also does include where we added in Rule 18, which is the legislature appointment policy, which was previously under some other rule back in the middle. I don't even remember where it was, but nobody could ever find it because it didn't have its own rule. So now it does have its own rule. I guess I'll just open it up if there's any questions or other edits that people want to make or concerns about these. Dan?
Comment and then a question. You highlighted that the creations of committees are subject to approval of majority of the whole legislature. You just wanted to point that out because it was a question whether we're actually doing that at this time or whether it has to happen at the annual, the first meeting of the year. So I was just pointing that out. That was something we noticed that we don't really necessarily do. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Do you have a page reference?
Sorry, page 42. Sorry about that. Near the bottom, it's highlighted in red.
So I picked that out as well, Dan, but I was thinking that this was in reference to the beginning of that sentence, that the chair can create a committee at any meeting. So like if at our Tuesday meeting that we just had, the chair could say, I'm gonna appoint a new committee, and at that point the rest of the legislators would have to agree or approve. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Jonathan, you have your hand up. I don't know if you wanted to say something about this. Okay.
You're muted, John.
I was saying my hand wasn't up for that. I had a few other comments on that.
Okay. So I guess I'm not sure, Dan.
That's fine. And then the other things I just wanted to ask about, packet page 44. Let's see, at one point it says member filed, another point it says staff filed, but filed is crossed out. Why did we do that? Why aren't we using the term member filed and staff filed as we kind of do in common usage?
I don't know, because the title of those sections does say member filed and staff filed.
I don't remember taking it out either. Don't know.
So I can add that back in for the next, yeah, okay.
Thank you, that was it.
All right, so I'll change this for when it comes back next month. Jonathan, you had a couple of things?
Yeah, I had a couple of things. So on page 44 in the staff filed resolutions, the second to the last paragraph, it says if the action required is an emergency action. I think it would make sense to eliminate the words be required and, I mean, because it's, the recommendation from the county administrator really isn't required. That's sort of inconsistent with what comes before it. But to say it will be sufficient is fine. So,
Okay.
Recommendation from the county administrator or designee will be sufficient.
Sufficient.
'Cause
Okay.
it's really not required. It's, that would be inconsistent with what comes before. Then I just had a thought about the next paragraph, the next sentence there. Whether I don't really agree with that. I mean, it seems to me that if most members don't want to put it off, why would you put it off?
Right.
And there have been instances in the past, I mean, not, where somebody who's simply against something moves to put it off. So, I mean, it's not a big thing. I just don't know why, if, 4 members of the committee don't think it's a good idea to put it off, why, it should be put off.
Rich.
Yeah, I think this language was in there before, and I think we just didn't address it. I mean, it does suggest some level of comity, that we try to get along with each other and respect the minority view, but I guess it doesn't have to be in there. We would do it anyway. If somebody had a good reason to delay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do that if we sort of work it out in the moment of if we're going to delay or not. And if the majority wants to delay, we delay. And if we don't, we don't. So I'm okay with cutting it. Other thoughts about this? Okay. All right. Well, I think that makes sense, Jonathan. Thank you. I'll just cut that out for the next one.
Yeah. Then I had a few more.
Yep.
Page 47. In number 6, I'm not sure when it refers to regulations implementing. I don't know why we just don't say members of the Tompkins County Legislature shall be bound by the New York State Freedom of Information law, because it says regulations, but you're bound by the law itself, as well as, and what implements the Freedom of Information law isn't really regulations. We have a county plan, we have et cetera. So I might just eliminate the reference to regulations and just say shall be bound by the New York State Freedom of Information law.
Okay, we can do that. Makes sense.
And the same thing in number 7, which
Right.
Shall be bound by the Code of Ethics, because we really don't have regulations pertaining to the Code of Ethics. We have the Code of Ethics.
Yep. Okay.
And then one other thing, which I'm trying to find where it is, where we talk about the performance of people being confidential. I'm trying to find exactly where that is. It is the.
Oh.
I will find it in a sec.
Okay. While he looks for that, are there any other edits or comments people want to bring up? Mike Lane?
Yeah, a question on page 40, packet page 45, near the top, the second paragraph there. Why is that struck about the expanded budget committee?
I'm sorry, why is that what?
It's crossed out.
Oh, I think we just moved it.
Is it moved somewhere that I didn't see?
Where are we?
Oh, I do see it. It's over on page 43, isn't it?
Yeah, packet
Okay.
page 45, Rich, the
I
part of
understand.
yeah.
All right, thanks.
We did move a bunch of things around in here because
I
it's
didn't
hard.
see it.
It's hard to find stuff, so we tried to reorganize a little bit. Okay.
I did find it. But,
Okay, Jonathan, you found.
Yeah. So on page 46, the number 4.
Yeah.
At the end, it says access to these confidential files will be according to the established by the protocols. I might eliminate the word confidential because it's not entirely clear that they're confidential. And with this recent police thing, that's become a big issue about to the extent to which those files are confidential. So I might just eliminate those words or that word. Because we can't, we don't want to be suggesting that these things are necessarily confidential because they're not.
Right. Okay.
Like we also need to call it the Human Resources Department too, right?
Yeah, okay. Any other thoughts on what Jonathan just said? I'll change that, and I'll change personnel to human resources. Okay, was there anything else, Jonathan?
No.
All right, let's see. Rich, you have your hand up?
I do. I see we have an open question on page 43 in the paragraph under agendas and minutes. Special committee deadline for agenda question mark, and we're going to ask Kathy.
Sorry, tell me where you are again.
The third paragraph from the bottom under agendas and minutes.
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
block. I think we need to take that out or answer it.
All right. I guess, did we not get that answered?
I think it's in the first sentence. I think we've said 6 days.
Okay. All right, so I'll just cut that for the next version.
Well, maybe, I don't know, because we're talking about special committees, but the standing committees, I don't know why you'd have a different deadline for special committees.
Maybe we meant to say, should we just add in special committees? Should we say for standing and special committees? We were just wondering if is there a difference? If not, we should add it in.
Yeah, why don't we say standing and special?
Okay. I do remember talking about it, but it's been a long time now since we've talked about it.
Yeah.
Okay, I will add in at the beginning of that sentence and special committee, and I'll check with Kathy as well, and if she thinks that that's incorrect, then we can fix that. All right, Ann Corman.
Thank you. I was on page 42. It talks about the chair appointing the chair and vice chair for the committees. And I was looking at where would it say that they are also appointing the members of the committees. And the only, so maybe it's in a different section, but the only thing I see is second to the last paragraph where it talks about that committees may be created at any meeting subject to approval, blah, 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 and then the composition of such committees, but it doesn't say above who's appointing the members of the committees in general.
Right, it goes from the chair shall appoint the chair and vice chair of the committees, and then the clerk will have the list. So maybe it should say the chair shall appoint each chair and vice chair and committee list.
And committee members.
And
Yes,
committee
I think
members.
the first sentence of the rule, although maybe it's not entirely clear, is intended to say that the chair of the legislature shall appoint the standing committees, really means appoint the members of the standing committees. It doesn't say that. But I think
Yeah.
it's intended to be in there.
It doesn't seem like we'd lose anything by saying chair, comma, vice chair, and members of each committee. It's consistent with the first paragraph and makes it clear.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Other thoughts about just adding in comma and members? Will that address it for you, Annie?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
All right. Did you have anything else?
No, thank you. I just wanted to mention too, thinking about like, I was talking to Amanda recently about like us coming in as new legislators several years ago, and then we're going to have several more new legislators coming in next year. So anything that can be clearer is easier for new folks coming in too. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Mike Lane?
I think adding that is fine, but I do think it probably says in the charter that the chair appoints the members of the committee.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Rich, do you have your hand up again? I'm losing track.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I wanted to comment on Ann's thing about new members, it's important that we maintain an air of mystery. And so we don't want to be too clear.
That's very generous
Just
of you.
saying.
Nice. Well, it is very mysterious, that's for sure. All right, so I don't see any more hands. I think that, so this is just discussion. I will make some of these small changes in the red line version, and this will be coming back to us for a vote next month, and then on to the full legislature. And then I feel like there was a couple of small things that we were like, oh yeah, we'll go back to that. So I think Dan and Rich and I need to get together and just think about what were those small things that we were going to get back to. And then we also need, Dan offered, and maybe we can have Jonathan kind of just go through one last time and double check that what we've put in the rules will be in compliance with the charter, and that they'll be in agreement, and any other changes we need to make, we can do again. Rich, one more thing.
Well, you kind of answered the question. I was wondering whether we could actually vote today with the changes we just talked about. But I guess if there's more review to be done, it doesn't hurt to wait.
Yeah, and we don't, Kathy usually puts it in a nice resolution with the clean version, and so we'll just wait. Everybody will have a little more time to look at it because you have nothing else to read right now. So, all right. Anything else on this rules? Great. Thank you all. Thank you, Rich and Dan, for Rules Fest. It's been fun. Just a very short committee chair. I just wanted to mention that I did talk to Annie earlier, and I want to put out there the idea again of committee meetings being public and online. And when we do eventually go back to chambers and everybody's there, it'd be great to work out a way that our committee meetings can be recorded, but put up on YouTube for all of posterity to watch. So I'm hoping to maybe pull together, Greg and Dominic and some folks and Kathy, and, to try to get that in everyone's minds to think about going forward as we slowly start to think about maybe going back to the legislature. But I think it really is a good thing, and I'm glad Annie has brought it up to me a couple times. We'll try to make that happen. Mike, Lane?
Find it again, but I realized that quite a number of years ago, we used to actually televise all the committee meetings, and the members of the committees didn't like that, and so that's eventually why we ended up stopping that. I think the formality that the televising of it requires, I think, was part of it back then, but it's certainly worth talking about again.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that. We should at least have a conversation about what's possible, and what kind of staff time are we talking about, and how difficult will it be, and what are the benefits, and all of that. So all right, so Jason let me know that unfortunately this date and time is also the IAED board meeting. So so he's unable to be here today, and he was going to see if maybe they could shift, and I said, well, maybe we could shift. I think we're going to be getting a new committee member, next month. So stay tuned for that. It's unfortunate that I didn't know and he didn't know, and so anyway. But we do have the lovely Lisa Holmes here to give us any updates from administration.
Well, we are busy. Jason's been busy, certainly, fielding the some questions and speaking out about the Reimagining Public Safety Report, giving presentations there. The Obama Foundation event is happening in a few minutes. And as far as my report in terms of the policies, we didn't have any prepared for the committee to review this month, but we have several in the works now that hopefully will have been reviewed by the organization and coming to you next month. And that's all I've got for the moment.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Lisa about that or anything else? All right, thanks Lisa for being here.
Sure.
Jonathan, any other reports that you want to give us?
No, as you know, I've written the legislature a couple of memos lately, and if people have any questions, I'll be happy to answer, but I don't have any additional reports.
Great, any questions for Jonathan? All right, thank you. Director of Finance, Rick Snyder.
Hello, one short thing to share with you. It's something that many of you have not heard me talk about a whole lot. That is the public administration of estates. And when I've had smaller meetings with legislators, I would describe some of the assorted and varied duties of the director of finance that are apart from county finance. And there's probably 4 or 5 different entities that I work for, but get paid by the county. And we don't often talk about those entities and the work that's being done to support these groups. One of the things that the public administrator of estates does is to provide under the surrogate's court a method for people who die without people that can handle their estate. It falls to somebody in state and local government to disperse of whatever funds are available in that estate. I know Mike Lane's familiar with this because he handles estates, and various members of the legislators have a different level of understanding of how much work is involved in the public administration of estates. Because we do not have a position in our county, not a lawyer or anybody assigned to handle public estates, by state law, it falls upon me, the director of finance or the treasurer of the county. And from time to time, we have little to no activity that we're working on with public estates. And at other times, we're inundated with them. We might get 2 or 3 of them in a 60-day period. So I wanted to share with you today just some of the estates that we're handling. Not to go into detail, I won't even go into hardly any detail at all because it is quite personal information, but I'm going to share a screen here and allow you to see. You should be looking at a report that's called County Treasurer with a list of estates. Do you see that on your screen?
Yep.
Okay. This is a report that the county attorney's office and I put together. It's sent to the state comptroller the beginning of each year. In the report, we have to list all the open estates that we're working on, and we have to give us a short summary. I'm only going to share this one page because it's a nice summary. You can see here there's 9 different estates on the last report, and many of them are quite old. You can see at the top 2, they go back to 2002. Another one of the estates I'm handling, we just started working with last year in 2020. The person died 11 years ago, and we just got the estate to handle last year. So many of these tend to go on for a protracted period of time, many years. This list of 9 that's shown here, about half of them, there's nothing that we're currently working on, which means it's tied up in the surrogate's court. There's work that somebody else has to do, and it's not incumbent upon us to move forward with anything. But there are 3 or 4 on this report that are what I call active estates that take a lot of county time to work on. And many of you aren't familiar with the fact that as the public administrator of estates, I have to devote time to this out of my regular workday in order to proceed with closing some of these estates. What does handling an estate mean? Well, it could be as simple as accepting foreclosure on a mortgage when there's a house that's out there in the state, there's no other assets, and there's a claim like from a nursing home or a hospital in that's more than the house is worth or equal to what the house is worth. So a lot of times we have a creditor that comes one and wants to foreclose against somebody. And so I'm named public administrator of the state just so that they can start the court proceeding to foreclose on that house. If there's not any other assets or liabilities, there's very little work that I have to do. So sometimes I'm given what the court calls letters of administration, and other times there's full administration. And it's in those ones where I'm the full administrator, which takes a lot of time. You might have to sell a house. You might have to go through belongings and clean the house, auction some of the items, gather all the assets like bank statements, insurance proceeds, eventually filing all that information with the court, and then finally making distribution to any beneficiaries. The reason why I brought this to you is that we don't talk a lot about it because it all happens behind the scenes. There's no committee or report that's generally been given. And I remember Mike Lane and a couple other legislators mentioning, you know, Rick, you ought to talk about this from time to time, because if you're expending a lot of effort and having to make time to do this, some of the work gets done on weekends, some of it gets done on nights. I'm trying to teach Drew to work on some of these estate matters along with me. We get support from the county's attorney's office. There's one estate on here where the person died 11 years ago that we've been in court 6 times over the last 9 months, where we either by Zoom or physically had to go to court because there's a person living in the house and there's a lot of other information behind it, but we can't get the assets turned over to us. And we have another meeting next week, next Thursday, on this same estate. So 7 times in about that many months, we've been ordered to go to the surrogate's court and try to explain why we're having trouble getting assets together on that estate. Along with this list of 9, there are about 4 other new ones that are not on the list, and they are very active. And so we have to do financial affidavits, and we have to gather assets for those also. So I wanted to share with you, I won't go into detail, but this is the type of summary that we give to the state each year on each one. And as I scroll through, you can see some are open, some have due dates like this one where we're supposed to have an accounting of assets by April 9th. What I wanted to bring to your attention was we really don't have anybody other than myself that's handling these estates. And as we get deeper into some of these, I'm going to need some help. There's just very little I can do to move some of these estates forward. And I would suggest, and we don't need an answer today, but I'm sharing it with the budget committee also, that we may have to hire an attorney to handle some of these. That's very tough because some of the estates, there's no assets at all. So how are you going to get an attorney to handle an estate if they're told there's no chance of getting paid anything? In other cases, I've worked with 2 different attorneys here, private attorneys outside the county attorney's office, to help handle some estates that we have closed. For the most part, that worked pretty well. But in those instances, I had to get those attorneys to agree that they weren't going to get paid anything for their monthly services until the estate was finally settled. Again, it's hard to find somebody who's willing to work on a estate for 18 months or 24 months and not get paid anything until the final distribution of assets. And then it would be based on how much of that distribution they could get. So there is no fund for public administrator of estates. There is no budget for public administrator of estates. So it's very hard for me as public administrator to do a lot of the work in doing a lot of these filings and making time in our finance department allotment of hours to get this work done. So I'm just telling you now, I may be able to come forward with a proposal at a later point in time that enlists the aid of somebody out there in our community, an attorney who can help me with some of this public estate work. The second report I wanted to share with you was a breakdown of time that the Director of Finance, myself, spends working for these 5 different organizations in which there's no payment received. It's all part of the Director of Finance's salary. But along with the county work that we have to do here, there are these 5 other organizations I'm showing on the screen. Public Administrator of Estates, if we were doing it right, and we're not quite there yet, I would imagine that's about 9% of my time should be spent doing that. Right now, it's about 0. And we just move things along at a snail's pace, trying to do the minimal amount of work. That's why it takes oftentimes 2-3 years to close an estate. The second organization for which I work is, as you know, the Greater Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance Consortium. I'm the treasurer of that. There's a lot of accounting, bookkeeping, quarterly statements for the state. We're working on one right now. That's the annual report. That takes about 15% of my time. The last 3 on this grouping is the Tompkins Tobacco Asset Security Corporation. We call that Tompkins Task. And the IDA and the Tompkins County Development Corporation, TCDC. Those 3 together as a group take about 10% of my time. I am the treasurer, bookkeeper, nobody else, for those last 3 organizations. I attend the meetings, I write the checks, I deposit the revenues. Everything that's done regarding finances for those last 3 are done by me. So I wanted you to be familiar with the tasks that are involved in this position that are extracurricular or extra county roles that we provide these services, to the tune of 34%, or roughly a third of my time is devoted to other business and county work. And so we don't often go through this review. I've shared it with, when we do our cost allocation studies, and it's part of some of our billing. We do get paid for the consortium for some of the work that we do here, but that's just money that comes back into the finance department, and that's based on a formula. So as you're aware, going forward, knowing that about 34% of my time is devoted to other things that are basically non-county finance business operations. So I thought that might be helpful for you to mull over. I'll share the same information with the budget committee and any others that would like to know. But I thought especially the public administration of estates was one that I don't think I've ever spoken about before in the 8 years that I've been here. So I thought I'd throw it out there for you today to at least become familiar with it. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. I don't believe I've ever heard about that before, so I appreciate you talking about it. Let's go to Mike Lane.
Rick, thank you for that report. It's eye-opening, actually. And I am aware of the work that it takes to do in a state, especially in a state where there's there's no family executor, for example, to help. Mike, one question, do any of these things that you've talked about, including the public administration of the state, do any of them generate revenue? Can the county charge administration commissions, for example?
We get paid by the consortium based on 70% of one of our payroll employees devotes 70% of her time to doing some bookkeeping for the consortium. And that's a monthly charge that the consortium pays to the finance department. 10% of Drew's time as deputy gets charged to the consortium. So over the years, we get about $65,000 from the consortium, which comes back into the finance department's budget, not to any person, but 0% of my time ever gets charged to the consortium. And that's the way it's been set up from its inception. And over in the near future, today, for example, we're interviewing a finance manager position for the consortium. Their goal is to eventually take over the bill paying function and the receiving of money for the consortium. And I'm sitting in on interviews today where the consortium may be hiring a finance manager, whereby over the course of 1 year, we should be redistributing our work and getting out of the consortium business as far as doing all the finances for the consortium. But they project that timeline to be at a minimum 1 year to train that new finance manager. And we're just starting that interview process right now. And the other groups on here, there's no money that comes back into the finance department.
We don't get to charge administrators commissions on the state?
Well, very rarely. I think there's been one since I've been here where we got a commission because there's rules that govern over when you can take a commission. Here, the finance director doesn't personally receive any remuneration or any commission at all, and never has. The county does have the ability to receive commissions, and we set that up with a trust fund. And I think that's happened once since I've been here. And I think Jonathan told me it's happened once or twice in the last 20 years where we've gotten commissions. But you actually have to have some money, of course, that's left over, that's available.
But if there was a sale of a house or something, there would probably be some money that you could take.
Yeah. But again, it wouldn't accrue to any individual. It would go into a trust account.
Right.
And I should say that the Tompkins Task Tobacco Asset Security, they also make a contribution to the county for the financial services that are rendered. Again, it doesn't go to any individual like me as treasurer, but they spend about $35,000 a year of the Tompkins task budget that comes back into the finance department. So the consortium has provided us with revenue, and so has the Tobacco Asset Corporation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jonathan, did you want to add something?
Yeah, a couple things. Like Rick said, I mean, this has been a responsibility of a county finance director forever. Historically, it's been a little different. We used to have some people in my office, Henry Tyson, Bruce Wilson, who had estate practices outside, and they were pretty helpful on these things. And there have been a few occasions where there's been, over the years, where there's been money in the estates, and we could apply for attorney's fees, et cetera. We did that once. Actually, my office was remodeled with money made from attorney's fees on an estate. That's true. But we're in a situation right now where we don't really have, as Mike would tell you, estates is really an expertise. It's not mine. I've never had an estate practice. So, once we no longer had those individuals in the county attorney's office, we would try to find somebody with that expertise. to do estates. The problem is, if, like Rick says, if there's no money in the estate, which we have frequently, then you're not going to get any attorney to do it. And the county taxpayer shouldn't be paying somebody to settle a private estate. So it creates a difficult situation. I mean, it's time consuming. David Squire spent huge amount of time. I remember on one estate where he gathered everything and tried to sell like tens of thousands of CDs of somebody's house once. And I mean, all kinds of crazy things have come up.
Yeah.
Because there's situations. We once had an estate where there were a whole bunch of people who had to be notified, potential people who could receive under the estate, only they were all in Asia. So all kinds of crazy stuff comes up that we're really not particularly brilliantly equipped to handle. And, I'm not sure that there's entirely a great solution to it.
And I'll add to what we get the craziest ones that you could ever imagine. The oldest ones and the craziest ones and the brokest ones, the ones that have been mismanaged and broken. And we've had 3 lawyers that have handled one, and they are all now dead themselves. But where you go, we've had 3 administrators, and they are all dead. Then they finally comes to me, after all the lawyers and all the benefactors have died. So we get the craziest ones, the ones that nobody wants to touch, nobody wants to come to the front of the line to handle. And then they fall on the state-appointed public administrator, which our surrogate's court judge here loves to just give to me. And and so I inherit these things and plot along. Drew and I are going by the book. We do the best as we can without being, of course, we're not attorneys, especially not an estate attorney, and we do the best that we can. And like I said, the more difficult ones, we've had to use attorneys to help get them done. I just think there might need to be some discussion in the future about farming out some of this work to some other attorneys, if and when possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, if you ever find anything good at one of these estates, you can let the legislators know and we can go pick through it. Other questions for Rick about this? Thank you for bringing it to us and for, letting us know the struggle of it. It does sound like a slog. So it's good. It's good for us to know and know that you're spending time on it. So.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah.
Amanda, do we have time? Because I can ask Rick another question about something different.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah.
Rick, tax searches in your department.
Tax what?
Searches.
Searches, yeah.
County tax searches, for which you charge $30 a piece for, and they're always used for real estate transactions, mortgages, that kind of thing. I notice a lot of the abstract companies are issuing tax searches. Are you getting paid for that service? And the reason I'm raising this is because back when Dave Squires came to us and wanted to raise the cost of tax searches, which were $1 when I started practicing law, his argument was that he needed to hire someone, and this would supplement the pay for a person to handle that. And I'm just wondering what's going on with the tax search in your department now. Are you still issuing as many, and is this still justified? And if you want to look at it and get back to me.
I'm going to have to look at it and discuss it with Lisa Schott. Jonathan, do you know any more about how we do them here? I'm not really that familiar with Lisa handling all of that. Are you familiar with it at all?
Basically, but I'm not familiar with what we get paid for it. So that we'll have to look into.
I think it's right at $30 a piece, and we haven't changed that since I've been here. But I'll try to, if I got follow-up questions, I'll get up with you, Mike, offline.
That would be nice, thanks.
And I'll try to get Lisa to prepare a report for us so that we can discuss it. Thank you.
I actually had one other question. I just remembered, Rick. what's the staffing in your office like? I know you don't have a purchasing person, right?
Yeah, we're working on preparing a new budget manager position. That's a slight upgrade from the previous buyer position. And as soon as that's ready, we're going to be publicizing that, getting HR to grade it and send it out. That's the only vacancy that we have right now, with the exception of an accounting clerk position that's being temporary filled by Linda Halstead, and that's working out really well. So we don't have as much pressure there. So we're probably in better shape than we've been for a long time, especially now that all the audits are going full speed ahead. We only have that buyer or purchasing position that's vacant right now, and you'll see that being posted soon.
Great, that's great. Yeah, I am sort of helping out with the environmental procurement policy team that's working on that, and so yeah, like I'm learning more a little bit about purchasing, and having somebody in that role would be helpful.
Yeah, well, Joanne Carruthers is pretty much, she's on that team too, and she's our director of accounting. So she's still pretty much in most of the bidding and purchasing items that come through our doorways. But yeah, that I say we're fully staffed, but because of COVID, we've gone backwards again since January 1st. And on any given day, we only have 50% of our staff here, which I guess is pretty good compared to some other departments. But usually we have 2 out of the 4 in the Treasury division here, and about 5 or 6 out of 9 over here on the accounting side. So on any given day, 50% of our staff are working at home and 50% are here. And of course, that's difficult.
Yeah.
But we'll get through that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for all you're doing.
You're welcome.
All right, so let's see. Communications director, there was a note in the chat that Dom had to step away. So unless he appears suddenly on the screen, I'm going to assume that he is not here. Any updates or comments from committee members about anything? All right, there were several budget adjustments for information only. Any questions or comments about those? All right, then I think we're all set. Anything else before this committee today? Thank you all for coming and for your time, and we are adjourned, and it's still snowing out, so go take a walk in the snow.